Cliche Podcast. Your silence hurts us. Podcast. Your silence hurts us. Quote. Over the air radio Alamal FM on 95.5 to 98.8 MHz. The podcast, Your Silence Hurts Us, part of the Women Peacemakers Project. Implemented by Alamal Women's and Sociocultural Foundation. The podcast, Your Silence Hurts Us. Produced by Hadramaut Media and Development Foundation Radio Alamal FM. Prepared by Shadi Muhammad and Amar bin Johar. Presented by Kamar Sami. Editing and audio engineering, Amar Salem. Supervisor, Salwa Muhammad Bakhtar. Welcome, dear listeners. We will meet you again in the third episode of podcast, Your Silence Hurts Us. On Alamal FM Radio 89.8 and 95.5 MHz. In today's episode, we talk about the reasons that make the activists and defenders of women and human rights in Yemen vulnerable to violation. We will also review the solutions, treatments, and ways to limit the occurrence of these causes. All of this after a short break, and we will return to you. Dear listeners, welcome again. Perhaps the most prominent reason that makes women the most victims of human rights violations during wars and conflicts, after children of course, is the psychological and biological nature of women and their special circumstances, which may make them different from men in some circumstances, and even though women have a strong endurance that women are sometimes superior to men, but her emotional side may differ from them, which increases her weakness in the psychological and physical aspects. Since the activist and defender is essentially one of the Yemeni women, this is a major reason that makes her vulnerable to violation like other women, but the reason that makes her more vulnerable to violation may be because of her defending the issues of other women and monitoring their cases of violation. Dear listener, there may be several questions on your mind about how an activist can defend the rights of other women who are violated and abused, while she falls prey to abuse. Does that explain her inability to defend herself and her rights while she can only defend others? The activist can defend herself, her rights, and other women in all different ways, even in the presence of conflicts and wars. But when the activist becomes unable to defend her right if she is subjected to a violation and is unable to stop it, this means there are several reasons that we must list. But we must agree that all of them, no matter how numerous and similar they are to the causes of violations for other women, will not happen to the activist or defender unless she finds the basic element that motivates all the causes of violation in the activist. This element is the activist's silence about the violation. We must highlight the word silent, because if the activist speaks out and defends her rights and herself, she will stop any violation and will prevent herself from being subjected to it again. Before we go into the details of the causes that interact with the element of silence, we will take you to a short break in which we renew our definition of campaign, Your Silence Hurts Us, and we will return. The beginning of the Focus View, introducing the campaign through the Focus View report. The Your Silence Hurts Us campaign comes within the Peacemakers project funded by DTI, to achieve justice within the Justice for Yemen Pact, which aims to monitor violations resulting from the conflict in Yemen. The project works to build the capacity of monitors and workers in the specialized Together for Her network in monitoring and documenting violations against abused women and activists defending women's rights and human rights in Hadramaut. The Women Peacemakers project will last for 19 months and includes several different activities that contribute to the process of monitoring violations for justice within the Justice for Yemen Pact. The campaign, Your Silence Hurts Us, aims to mobilize and finance local and international support to improve the protection of activists defending women's rights and human rights. Improving the image of women defenders within society and increasing community awareness about violations in general and violations against women defenders in particular. The campaign, Your Silence Hurts Us, was launched coinciding with the approaching 16-day activities to combat violence against women, which focuses light on the violations suffered by women and human rights defenders. The campaign adopts a message not to be silent about violations against women activists and defenders. The campaign encourages female activists to reveal what they are subjected to violations and clarify the challenges they face while defending women's rights and human rights. Dear listeners, the campaign, Your Silence Hurts Us, has various activities, including this podcast, Your Silence Hurts Us, which you are listening to on Alamal FM radio. There are other activities on mass media and social media sites, including positive messages and articles about women defender activists, and a workshop that will be carried out by organizations within the Justice for Yemen Pact, to discuss all aspects that contribute to the protection of women defender activists. The end of Focus View, introducing the campaign through the Focus View report. Dear listeners, once again, and after we have learned the main element that motivates the rest of the reasons for the activist's exposure to violations, which is the element of silence. That is, the activist's silence about the violation and her rights to prevent and stop it. Among the reasons that make the violator in general vulnerable to any violation is the lack of a deterrent punishment for the person who commits the violation, and this applies to female activists and defenders. However, in addition to the other known causes of women's violations related to economic, social, cultural, and other types of violations, the most important reason for the violation of the activist remains that she defends the rights of others. Therefore, the activist's defense of other women and human rights, in general, is considered a reason for her being exposed to the violation to force her to stop her defense. Also, social restrictions, customs, and traditions are considered among the most important reasons that interact with the activist's silence about the violation, such as the activist's fear of the consequences of the violation being practiced against her of the type of blackmail and defamation, which could lead to the distortion of her reputation and thus the social sphere circulating a distorted image of her and society not searching for the truth, so she falls easy prey for the bars of customs and traditions that look at things from a superficial side. In addition, one of the reasons that make the activists vulnerable to violation is the economic situation. The violation may extend to threatening to fire her from work or deprive her of dues, which forces her to stop defending the human rights of other women and remain silent about her rights. After we learned about the most important reasons why Yemeni women activists are exposed to violations and violence, we, our dear listeners, have the opportunity to present to you the solutions to reduce these reasons. The most important solution to address this matter remains in the hands of the activist herself, which is embodied in her confronting all forms of fear and intimidation to which she is exposed, her resistance to violation in various ways, avoiding silence, and surrender to the violator's blackmail and threats, and hastening to report the party that committed the violation against her. The other solution relates to the role of society and official bodies by activating private and public laws to limit the violations of all women, including the violated activists, as well as raising awareness of the rights of the activists and the violated women. Dear listeners, we have reached the end of our episode of the podcast, Your Silence Hurts Us, after we reviewed for you the most important reasons that make Yemeni women activists vulnerable to violations and violence and the most prominent solutions to reduce them. Before we conclude, we renew our introduction to the Together for Her network, which network of Yemeni women that works to monitor and document cases of violations that women are subjected to due to the war. It also opens its arms to all Yemeni women activists and defenders who have been subjected to violations, whether during their defense of human rights and women or during their lives. Ordinary violations, whether due to the war and conflict the country is witnessing or due to social, economic, or other conditions. The network encourages women and activists who have been subjected to abuse to report any case of violence and abuse through the network's application in the Google Play Store, which bears the name, Together for Her Network, or by calling the following number, 776,520,320. The network will provide all necessary support to all women, activists, and human rights defenders who have been subjected to abuse and violence. It will work to stop it, prevent it, and limit its occurrence. We leave you in Allah's protection. Waiting for the new episode.